there's been a lot going on since we got back so we went on vacation in December, and then we came back, and I feel like the whole world is just like, oh, AI coding everything. These agents are so amazing. And honestly, I feel that way too. And I think it's because everybody had a break from
They had
work, and then
time.
they had time to just like mess
Yeah.
around with this stuff. So I think we've been talking about how Opus 4.5 was like this big breakthrough, and we were seeing this maybe like in December, but everybody now just kind of caught up, and I'll be honest, me too, just because I had so much more time to just mess around with it. And I built something over the break, and then I came back, and I'm just like, nothing is ever going to be the same. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Is it as stark for you, or do you feel like you were there already like months ago?
Not months ago, but I think maybe a couple of weeks after Opus came out is when I was starting to be there. And I think that's purely because I was using it so much for every day to day work stuff. And
Yeah.
because I was thinking about this, is like, why did this happen over the break? And I think you're right. People had time. But then I think the fear of letting an LLM rip on a code base is gone when you're on vacation and you're just playing. So I think when everybody was doing stuff at work, they were too scared to do that because they're like, this is production stuff. Like, I've got to make sure it's exactly right. I got to read every line of code. And so they didn't get the real benefit until they were just playing around with it, like, let me see what happens. Right. And then I think they realized, like, oh man, this is good. Like, it can just run and it can do a fantastic job of it. And like, especially on things where you're not familiar with writing the code or like the language or stuff like that, it does a better job than you would if you didn't know the language. And if you know the language really well, it does about as good of a job, at least as I do. Right. So yeah, I think that's
I
what it
think it
was.
I think it writes code better than I do, honestly. I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest difference is that when I write code, I'm thinking hard the whole time about very, very small decisions, and then that expands into how the whole thing comes together. And with the AI, I'm not doing that, but it still does a really good job. I mean,
Yeah.
like I'll show you this thing that I built. It looks like crap, but I built this so over the break, I was sick the whole time. I had Christmas, I was gone for New Year's. So I
Mhm.
spent less than a full week on this. And so it's this multi-tenant, it's basically like an agent platform. It has clerk authentication. It has
Right.
convex database in the background. It has it's integrated with like OpenAI with let me show you. If you go to agent, you can create multiple agents. You can integrate with like Langfuse, change the model. It has a vector knowledge base where I was using OpenAI Vector Store, but now it's Convex,
Mhm.
where you upload a doc, it will chunk and embed it, and then it will use a tool in the agent to actually reference it. It has voice. Like, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear this, but let me preview this. Hello, hello.
Good to see you,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah,
How's
you
the
hear
day
that?
treating you?
Yeah.
I do, but I
So
don't know if
like
anybody else will.
maybe it didn't come through on the podcast, but it's OpenAI real time voice agent hooked up to Twilio, so you can call the agent. It has an embed code to put on your website. It has like you can open up the little preview and try it out. Like this was I built this in a week. Like this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. That I mean, you could not do this a year ago. This would have been like weeks, if not months of work. And the fact that this like still sucks and I can spend another week and it'll be like 10 million times better.
Yeah. I will say it gets functionality right unbelievably well. But I think the old adage of like the last 20% of the project is going to take the majority of the time is still true,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And like you still got to deal with those edge case scenarios. You need to know what you're building, why you want to building it. And I do think design is still the missing piece in all of this because they all look the same. There's nothing overly creative with it. You can get a nice looking site that you can build a business and make money from, and like that's great and wonderful. But I, I'd still think if you want to be like stand out and you want to look polished, you're still going to need Like AI can't do that kind of polishing work.
Yes.
Exactly right.
I'm starting to realize that now because I'm like, okay, I have the basic building blocks.
Yeah.
Now what? And I'm like, oh, AI can't handle the taste for me of
No.
making the design better and figure out how exactly I should put the user interface and all this stuff. It kind of makes me wonder if the last 20% is all that ever really mattered. We just had to spend a bunch of time on the boilerplate code because we had no other choice, but it was never what mattered.
Possibly.
You know? Yeah. And now we're just kind of seeing like, oh, now that I don't have to spend all the time coding, now I realize what actually is valuable.
Right.
But yeah, what's crazy is like I can do this and I'm like I've built this kind of stuff before, so I knew how to do it quickly. I really think someone who doesn't know what they're doing could still do the same thing. It might take them a little longer. They might put some of the pieces in the wrong place. Right. But like I'm seeing people who don't write code at all release apps. Be like, hey, I built this like Mac app. Check it out. People who don't know how to write code, which is just crazy. Like I'm like wondering where is this going? Now we're in the world where software is now like a blog post. It's like there's so many out there. Anybody can write them. They're not all the same quality, but it's just the bar to entry is just the same as just like opening up your editor and writing a blog post.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Like, yes, if you're building something just static or simple, but you still got to know how to integrate convex. You still need to know about auth. You still need to know how to like who to go to for that for right now. Like, I think there's like you need to know what an API
but can't
is.
Can't you just ask Claude? Be like, hey, what do I need to do next? And it'll be like, oh, you need to store the data somewhere. Okay, tell me where I should store it. And it may not say convex. It may say Vercel or AWS, but it doesn't really matter, does it?
Maybe not in the future, but could you imagine and Claude's telling somebody who doesn't even know what AWS is, oh, go to AWS and sign up for an account and create an RDS database and ensure that you have your proper security groups and all this stuff set up and it's in a VPS. Like, I still think there's that side of it that Joe Schmo can't come on and get a like fully working application up unless they're using something like Lovable or Supabase or whatever, where they're kind of like the agent is built around those tools. And so
I think that may be true for the really complex stuff, but that is a ceiling that keeps just like getting higher and higher and higher. And I just think that it's going to be gone in a very short period of time.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still think, I mean, and you're saying the same thing too. What matters most is knowing what you're building, right? The business, the problem that you're trying to solve. Because I tried to build like an agent orchestrator, a 2E app and everything. And I hadn't really thought about it. I was just seeing people posting about it and being like, this is the next best thing or the new big cheese. And it's going to be agent orchestrators. And so I was like, well, all right, let's see if I can spin something up. And I didn't know what I was building. And I just ended up with a lot of slop that didn't actually do anything. I mean, it had a lot of pieces, but none of it worked together because it was like AI was just like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to use tmux, and I was like, and so it just that's really going to be what it boils down to is you have to really know what you want to build and you have to spend time thinking about it if you want an actual good output. Like, it's still not as simple as one prompt, build me this thing, and you walk away and it's going to be perfect or work exactly how you want it to.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for stuff that's a little bit novel. Like an agent orchestrator is on the cutting edge enough where the model does not have a bunch of like Stack Overflow posts about it or documentation. And so that is certainly going to be more difficult. And that's probably where software engineers are going to continue to be the most valuable is on those bleeding edges. But yeah, so I came back from break and I'm kind of like, I keep going back and forth. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to have a job anymore. I'm useless now because the AI could do everything. And then I'm like, but wait, no, I still have value because there's like creativity and taste and like helping in it communicate with other people. And I actually wrote this blog post about it. And And then I came back to work and I'm like, actually, at a big company, there's so much to do with just communication with other people that there's no way that they could actually get rid of a bunch of engineers, I guess, in the short term, maybe in the longer term. But as far as just writing the code, we're at a point now where a larger team actually makes things harder because you're sitting in meetings talking about stuff. Like I was sitting in meetings today for like, we would sit and talk for 15 minutes about one simple thing that like I could have just done in less time than we were talking about it for some engineer who didn't understand it. And then like the PM has to give their take, and then another engineer has to disagree about it. And so I'm like, if you just got rid of all these people and just like, I just went on Claude Code, I would have gotten all this done. Mm-hmm. But like, I mean, what do you think now is the most value that that software engineers are needing to bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be your own agency, right? Like, I think if you are in a meeting and you realize this could be just a simple prompt with Claude Code, you need during that meeting go do it, right? And then at the end of the meeting say, by the way, this is done. Here it is.
It's easier said than done. There's politics, there's feelings, there's like, but my boss was in there, like all that kind of stuff.
I think a lot of that's going to go away though, because I do think some of this is going to break through the bureaucracy of bigger organizations where like somebody is just going to be able to say, I can go do that, right? Like it's easy. I'll take that task and go give it to Claude and it's done without having to like sit there and coordinate with everyone. And a lot of times the coordination is going to be more painful, like trying to put everything into Jira and break everything down into Jira for a team to work on that. Now that agent doesn't have context, but that agent was going to do the work anyway. So then how do you get that context back out of Jira and into there? So Jira is going to be for people, but it's not going to be helpful for agents. And so I think a lot of that's going to move to where project management is going to be for agents instead. And so again, it's going to reduce that bureaucracy of having to put stories in for other team members because one person's going to be doing it with 10 agents versus 10 people hand coding it. So, I mean, I do still would say the most important thing for us is the agency of just getting the job done, no matter how it's gotten done, and taking the initiative to do things. Like even if you're waiting on another team, you got to do it.
Yeah, agreed. You know, it's a double-edged sword though, because now that we can also do things faster and have the AI do them and stuff, there's now people who don't understand things from a technical standpoint who can go off and build a bunch of stuff and create a bunch of specs and come back and be like, hey, here's a bunch of like architectural specs, and I think we should change to do this instead. And now someone like us has to review it and be like, actually, no, for these reasons, which just completely wastes our time, as opposed to being like, no, you didn't understand it before. Just because you wrote this with AI doesn't mean that you understand it now. But people take them seriously because they can build a demo that works, and then they can write a spec that looks nice. And they can put up PRs for that. Nobody except an engineer who knows what they're doing has to go debunk it, almost like just using up time doing that.
I think that's a problem for right now though. Right. And I think that probably those specs that product managers are doing or whatever in the future, they're not going to be technical at all. They're going to be very product business focused. And then you just give it to Claude and Claude figures out the architecture. Right. But right now because we do still have to be an engineer in there being like, thinking with AI about the systems and the architecture and stuff like that. And it needs to be done well, that we can't fully 100% just hand it off to AI and trust that it's going to get the architecture right and do everything. That's why that's a problem right now. But in the future, when we can trust and the LLM can probably do all that stuff on its own, that won't be a problem because there's going to be a major wall where we don't think about the tech anymore. We just think about the problem that we're trying to solve. And
even as engineers, not thinking about the tech, you're saying?
Possibly.
Man, that's crazy to think about. If we just basically become product people at that point, technical product people. I mean, that's what you've been saying, right?
Yeah. I mean, or like, yeah, your meta founder or like product engineers, which is what Vercel's calling it today. I mean,
Yeah.
I could see it, but I don't know. But anyway, I think that's just a problem with today is that engineers do still need to be involved, but it has given agency to non-engineers to dream up some crazy things. And then the lines get blurred between good product ideas and bad technical ideas. And so I think that's just a growing pain that we're going to have to deal with for right now.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing that has popped in my mind. So there's this tweet, and this guy says he's depressed. Like everyone else, I've been using Claude Code, and it's incredible, and I've never found coding more fun. The stuff you can do and the speed you can do it is absolutely insane, and I'm using it to ship a lot and solve customer problems faster, so all around it's a win. But at the same time, the skill I spent tens of thousands of hours getting good at, programming, the thing I spent most of my life getting good at, is becoming a full commodity extremely quickly. And as much fun as it is, and as much as I like using the tools, there's something disheartening about the thing you spent most of your life getting good at now being mostly useless. There's also a post by George Lee Aros, who said the same thing, the grief when AI writes most of the code. He basically says the same thing. Like he likes writing code. He has these skills he built up, and now all of a sudden it just doesn't matter anymore. And I've been feeling like this. There are some really good replies that I want to read here. So one of them was, I might not be able to find it here, but it was like, consider yourself like a pilot, and the pilots don't do barely anything these days, or that's probably not true. Oh, here it is right here. Pilots do almost nothing because everything's done electronically now, but no one would just like not have a pilot, and no one would feel comfortable if the pilot wasn't there. And especially if you think of these multi-billion-dollar companies like the one we're at, they're not going to just not have a pilot there. But I mean, I would say you don't need like 500 pilots. You only really maybe need one. I don't. Yeah.
And I think
there's
the
a lot of
pilot
good
in software is a stretch, right? I mean, I agree with the principle that like pilots do put it on autopilot a lot, but they're also dealing with life or death type stuff, which there's some software dealing with life or death things out there in the health world and whatever. But you need a pilot because you have people in the back of your plane where they can step in and save their lives if needed, right? Do you always need an engineer, a pilot building software that's just a CRUD application? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, no, but I would say these companies are worth so much money that they don't need to fire all their engineers. That like they might want to get rid of 50% of them, but they don't need to fire all of them. I mean, another comment here is the reason why you're so good at using it is because of all those hours you spent mastering coding. And I buy that in the short term. I don't buy it in the long term because I just think as these models continue to get better, you're just going to be able to give it a natural language spec of saying like, here's what I want this to do from a user perspective, like a user story, and it will figure out all the technical parts. And it doesn't really matter if you know how to hook up to Convex and Langfuse and OpenAI and all this stuff, because it knows and it will just do it. So I'm feeling a little bit bummed. Another thing that I told you in Slack is when I used to code a lot, which was not that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago. Sometimes I would be using my brain so much, my head would physically get hot. Like I could feel all the blood flowing into my brain and my head would get hot because I was using my mind so hard to be like thinking and doing all this engineering work. And I would just like be in the zone. And with
Right.
AI now, it's like I can do a lot more, a lot faster, but I am not using my brain near as much, and it will never be to the point where it was, where my brain was actually getting hot from usage.
I'd agree
And
with that.
I'm kind of bummed about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, developers always wanted that flow state, that Zen coding mindset of just being able to knock out code and get in the zone. And yeah, that I haven't had that in a long time. Basically, ever since I started using LLMs. Like, I think mostly because there is some waiting, and I then have to like go answer a Slack message, or I can go do something else, or I just like your brain doesn't have to stay focused on the idea of typing or writing something out. So I'd agree. I don't feel as depressed, but I think that's probably just more my personality than anything. Like there have been multiple things where I've invested like 25 years of my life into working on things. And like, I used to play violin and I played it for like 25 years and like considered a career and stuff like that. I haven't touched it in 7 years. And people are always like, do you miss it? I'm like, not really. Like, it was a good time in a season and now I don't regret it, but I've moved on to other things. Right. And so
But you
like,
found something else that was equally as simulating, right? Like with software engineering,
yeah.
I don't think
Mhm.
AI is going to be that thing to
No,
replace
I
it.
think it'll be, I mean, but and to some degree, maybe that's a good thing. Like it'll give people more opportunities to express new hobbies or new passions or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just, you will have to find something else if AI is going to be doing the majority of that. Another thing to master, another thing to learn and learn your craft and excel in it because I mean, our craft will be totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I was actually a music major in college. I played guitar and put a ton of work into being a musician and just kind of realized I wasn't there was no life there for me because even like
Same.
the very best musicians like made no money and had
Right.
horrible gigs and I was like I'm not even anywhere near them and never will be, so I have no
Exactly.
chance.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was. I wasn't a natural musician. I always had to like really learn at it. And I was just like, there's always going to be somebody, tens of millions of people way better than me. And I'm like, it just wasn't the life that I wanted long term. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
story. I didn't know that. That's pretty sweet though. We should start a
Yeah.
band. That'll be our new thing then.
There you
Maybe
go.
we'll go back to music.
There you go. You know, I feel the
Yeah.
same way as you, though. I don't really. I fiddle around with the guitar once in a while, but I really don't miss it that much because I played it so much. I just
Yeah.
like I was just like I'm done. I played it enough. There's nothing. I'm not interested in it
Exactly.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't major in it, but I played on a band that was like a school sanctioned band that we were rehearsing 2 times a week and playing, like performing 5 times a week.
Oh
And
wow, yeah,
so it was just like, wait, it was great and wonderful. But after the 4.5 years, because I was slow graduating, I was just, yeah, I was done. So,
yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. So the next thing that's interesting to me after coming back to work is kind of thinking how do we get this AI coding thing to work across like multiple people and teams, which to me is a really hard problem right now because you can generate so much code so quickly that the bottleneck is then communicating those changes
mhm.
and reviewing the changes, merge conflicts, all that stuff. You can't have like 10 people just like writing like 5 PRs a day because you'll just be in merge conflict hell all day. And then nobody actually knows what's being done. So one of the things that I've been looking at is almost like reducing the amount of human PR reviews that we do, because one of the bottlenecks is now going to be human PR reviews. So this article talks a little bit about it, but the general idea is just like I set up an AI PR reviewer GitHub workflow for Claude to just do these AI PR reviews. And my idea is to just be like, look, AI is going to catch most of it and probably more than humans catch. And then you have somebody look over it and you have enough of an automated testing setup to where you just like merge it, you just move faster.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I agree. I think like I use primarily for that, for like backwards compatibility stuff. I think that's what these machines are way better at humans for that, because they can look at previous diffs and compare what you changed a whole lot better to make sure you're not breaking stuff than somebody else that isn't going to be as familiar with other areas of the code base or whatever. So I think they will catch things better, especially if your system prompt is good at being like, here's what, like, make sure you review our previous schema here. And it can like go and look at a previous commit while it's doing the review to look at the schema and then compare it to the new schema that you've printed out. So as long as you're giving it the right context to review it appropriately in a way that you want it to catch certain things or like to look at it in a certain way, then I think it's way better than a human reviewer. I think there's still more benefit from high level system architecture review from humans than it is from individual PR reviews from humans, right?
Yeah.
And so I've struggled. So, I mean, I've mentioned before, I do a lot of stuff kind of exploratory on my own at work. And I've been like, I should bring people in, and I want to bring some people in, but I've struggled with that because it's hard to bring people on board with all the context that they need to start something new and working efficiently, when I could just open up a new LLM session and do it then myself while I'm working on something else. Yeah. And I feel bad for that, but I'm also like, I have priorities and deadlines that I need to do. But I'm also like, but then there's still the flip side too of, for right now, like if I go on vacation, I'm still kind of on the hook. Right. Yeah. And that's a problem.
If you get hit by a bus or you go work for someone else, you quit, you're kind of screwing the company and the team, which is something that I think of, like, I can definitely move faster myself, the same as you, but it's kind of my job to make sure it's not all me, for that reason that the company can't just put all their eggs in one basket. I actually spent all day today, or most of the day, documenting, putting like a bunch of documentation in my repos, just like README files, agent files, stuff like that, and using my own. I'm trying to get the stuff in my brain onto context that an LLM can pick up, and then like documenting all these processes and trying to get like a really tight feedback loop for the agent, so the agent can like start somewhere and then go somewhere else if it needs more detail, go somewhere else if it needs more detail, and it knows exactly where to go. And it also knows the feedback loop for testing, like across multiple repos. And hopefully that'll help me move faster. It'll also help the whole team move faster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be what we have to figure out, is how do we get teams onboarded fast? Because they have to onboard into a fast pace, like into software that's being written really quickly, right? They don't have this benefit of previously being able to like, hey, can we slow down a little bit and review this? And like every company is going to be wanting to write software faster and faster and faster now. And so we have to make sure that, the documentation there is so that an LLM can distill it and give them the appropriate information that they need to get onboarded and working quickly. I've seen it done in some projects where, I mean, there are a fair amount of people working on a project and they're all using LLMs to write it. It's still messy and there have been some major merge conflicts, but I know it can be done. It's just, I think you need a lot of people to start, like to be there more from the beginning and really understand what you're building. And it's a lot harder to just say, to give small tasks to somebody just to try to help out. They need to be more committed and really get it to be able to be a benefit so that they can move at the same pace. Because I have tried to bring people on and I've tried to be like, we're going to use LLMs for everything. Like, here's all the information that you need. And it's still just been really slow, not necessarily at their fault. I think they're just trying to understand what I've been working on so much because they haven't been in it and they haven't fully understood it. So it's been a harder thing.
Like they don't even know what to prompt the LLM because they don't have that deep understanding. You could say one little thing that's this super deep like feature. You don't even know how like esoteric it is just because it's natural.
Right.
but it's hard
Yeah.
for someone to come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tough one. And like, it's almost like we all need to be responsible for large code bases. Like each person needs a large code base to be responsible for now, instead of us all working together on small parts of one code base, because we're just like, we're 10x or 50x or whatever you want to call it with an LLM now. And you just need to be able to just go and change stuff and not worry about like, oh, I'm going to have a conflict with this other person. And
Yep. But
yeah,
again, what happens when you leave and you're the one working on that one large code base?
well, you document
Yeah.
it. I mean, you
I
put
know, but
everything
still.
I'm doing now. I'm like, create a spec file now, right now, like put everything you just did, like make a doc for it, put it in the README, update the agents file. I feel like if you do that, it would be much easier than someone comes along and is just like, hey, just read all the like documentation in this repo and tell me what we should do next.
Do you think we're going to have too much documentation with how much LLMs?
I don't think there's such a thing with LLMs. I mean, well, I guess I take that back. If it's not organized properly, yeah. I think if you make it like hierarchical, where it's like, here's the high level summary, go here for more detail, then same thing. Like you can just dive deeper and have like a graph or a tree or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's perfect. But if it's disorganized and it's out of date, then yes, that could be a problem.
Right. I mean, I've written more documentation.
But that's how everything is now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I'm coming back to these repositories that I've been working on for like over a year now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, all this stuff I never had time to do, I can now just have the LLM do it all. And so I'm like, go back to all my like end-to-end tests that are just like completely disorganized and half-assed and missing so many test cases, and just like clean it all up and add all the missing test cases. And then like all this documentation that's out of date, just like figure out what's out of date and update it. And man, it's like, it feels so great to do that.
It does. I think the only thing I wonder, say we do all that, who's it for? Is it for the engineer? Is the engineer going to take the time to read 20 pages of markdown files and documentation?
No, it's all for the LLM.
Yeah, but then how does the engineer get the business context that they need to properly prompt the LLM to do the work that they need to do? Like,
Well,
just the LLM.
that's why they need to be a product engineer, because they need to understand the product and the right.
But how are they going to get that context to understand it? Reading those 20 markdown files, or just an LLM?
No, they have an
summarizing
LLM. Like if I had to dive into your repo right now, I would have the LLM look at all the docs, give me the high level overview, and then I would work with someone who's on the team already to be like, what is the business use case for this? What are customers actually using? And just piece it all together. I really don't think it's a problem.
Fair enough. I mean, I think for you it's not, but I think I could see people just still jumping in and just saying to the LM, go do this Jira story. And that's it, right? They don't fully understand it. They don't take the time to even summarize it or read it or anything like that. And I think that's more what I'm getting at. You want to understand the problem that we're trying to solve, and you're going to figure that out before you go and try to solve it, even if you're using an LLM. But I think there are going to be other engineers that are just going to be trying to knock out as many tasks as they can, and they don't really care, and they just throw it at whatever description is in Jira at the LLM and say, go do this, and it's not going to be great.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing that is on my mind about being a product engineer, is I'm in a lot of these product meetings where they're talking about product stuff like GCR and CAC and like P&Ls. And I'm wondering how far to the product side I should be trying to go. Like, should I actually be really diving into that stuff? Or should I be like, no, I'm on the technical side. I'm always going to be on the technical side. Or is the LLM going to get so good to where I don't even need to be on the technical side anymore? And it's more important for me to understand CAC and GCR than it is for me to understand databases and, code. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I mean, I do think always the best engineers who are the ones who understood GCR and could then leverage engineering to impact that. But they understood the full flow. They were just way more technical than product focused. So I don't know. I think we're just going to have to move with the LLMs as they progress. I don't know where that line's going to be, but just as it keeps getting better and better, we're going to be moving further and further towards the product line versus the technical line.
Yeah, I just think there's going to be a point where I'm not going to be doing a tutorial on like, pointers and Go. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on like, I don't know, cost of acquisition and how that works. We're playing it out over a number of years. You're like, 2 years to get your money back. You should be at 1.5 years, or et cetera, et cetera. Like at some point, that's what I'm going to need to go look up as a tutorial. I don't know that we're there yet, because I still think it's enough to just understand like customer needs this, money goes up if we do this. Like that's the general parts are more important than the specifics right now, but they might not be that way forever.
Agreed. But that's funny you mentioned, because like you and I were both kind of digging in to Go before everything with LLMs kind of took off. I forgot about that. Like,
Yeah.
because we were having conversations about pointers and like structs and all this stuff in Go, and we were reading tutorials and watching all those videos and stuff. Like,
And writing code by hand like a couple of
Right.
cavemen.
I know, but
Yeah.
or we were just using all the autocomplete stuff back then, right? Because like that was all in Copilot, had their autocomplete. That
I did a
everybody
lot of
was like,
stuff
"Oh,
by
this-"
hand because that's how I wanted to learn. I wanted to
Yeah.
be like struggle through it, but
Oh, and it
didn't
got
do it for
kind of
long enough.
annoying. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I totally forgot about. Like, I haven't really, and it's kind of, maybe this is the depressing part that we're talking about, but like I haven't really read documentation for a language in a long time.
Yeah,
I
because
just
the
asked the
LLM can do it
LLM.
for you. Like you
I
don't
know.
have to,
Yeah,
and we don't have to learn Go because who cares? I mean, the
right.
LLM can do it, and like it's probably better if we understand these like garbage collection and pointers, and I mean from more than just a high level. But I have no reason to write anything in Go or Rust or any other language right now, and that's just maybe the nature of my specific job. But
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still always going to be low level type stuff. Like if you're building a database, you really got to know your stuff, even if you're using an LLM, right?
yeah, for sure.
So I think that is an aspect of what we're doing. I mean, I'm building a lot of APIs. An LLM can go build a Go API, a Node API, a Rust API, do whatever, and I don't have to know Rust or Go or anything like that, and it'll be okay. Like, I'm not going to be hitting the constraints of a language building APIs like that, because I'm not doing anything really pushing a language to the nth degree, like some of the lower level engineers or people who are working on like truly world scale type stuff, right? So, yeah, maybe part of it's what we're working on, that we're at the point of no return with LLMs, but the deeper you get in what you're working on, maybe the benefit is less if you're really at the bare bones of building something. But then you see, I don't know, because then you see like Jared, who's building Bun and stuff like that, and like he's posting about like how much they're using Claude and stuff to write Bun. Granted, he knows this stuff, and so he's just delegating to Claude to take away all the pain points and stuff. But like,
But would Bun exist if Jared wrote all of his previous projects with an LLM and never came upon the like knowledge or the
Probably
specific problem because he was just using an LLM, right? So I'm
Right.
wondering if this is just going to kill a bunch of innovation because everybody stops using their brains and finding hard problems the hard way.
Potentially, or we innovate differently,
Yeah, that could be true.
right? Like, I don't think it'll kill innovation, but I think we just will have to adapt to how we innovate. with
It'll
LLMs instead.
it'll make it a lot more valuable to do something to create something really new because you can't do that with an LLM. And if all you do is sit around and let an LLM do everything for you, you'll never learn any new knowledge to innovate anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, okay, let's move on. So the next thing, let's see, we have a completely different topic here, but agent skills is another thing that's come up recently. So agent skills are a way to allow your agent to have more context basically without loading it all up in the context window in front. So at first I thought these were just like a different way to handle tools. It's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. You can have a skill basically allows you to do a bunch of stuff, not just a single tool, but not have it all loaded into the context window. So you could have a skill for, say, I don't know, booking a hotel room. And instead of having all the tools for booking a hotel room loaded into the context up front, say by like listing tools with an MCP server, you have all the tools there. In the system prompt, you have here's how to like book a hotel room, right? Instead, you would have a skill, and it would be it's actually markdown files, and you can also have you can have like scripts in it as well. That would be for booking a hotel room. In the system prompt, you would say, hey, you can book hotel rooms. You just need to go look up this skill when you need to do that. So then the only thing that's in the context window is that basically it just knows it can do it and it knows where to look when it needs to do it. So then when it actually wants to go book a hotel room, it goes into the skill directory, it reads the files that you have in there, and the file can be a lot longer and more involved because you don't have to stuff it into the context window up front. So it can actually be like a multi-step workflow. You can put scripts in there. You can say like to book a hotel room, just like call the script in this folder to do this. And then here's another script you can call that does this other thing, and maybe use, a tool or something else. But having the scripts and the prompt or in the markdown file, basically instead of having a bunch of tools in the context, you just call a script, which doesn't add anything to the context. And then you have all the details in these markdown files, and you could even have them nested so that it's like, here's how to book a hotel room. To cancel a hotel room, go into this other file and look at it. But it doesn't have to load that up front. So this is a really interesting way. I think they already use it in like Claude Code and Claude Desktop and all this stuff. I'm looking at using it more. Too. Yeah. I'm looking at using it more for just like my agents that I'm building as a way for them to do more stuff without overwhelming the context window.
Yeah. I mean, how does it not overwhelm the context window? So like if the main agent, is it using sub agents? So if you have a main agent that you say, go use this skill, it has to go read that markdown file. And that's in that context of the main agent, right?
Yeah, but only when you need it. That's the point.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. So, because if you just hit an MCP server, and it has to give you all the tools, unless you have a tool search, which we've also talked about, you could do that. But it's basically a way of like saying, here's a high level summary of what you can do. For more details, go over here and then add it to your context window. And then the other thing is with a tool, it has, a description and some parameters, but it's not like a workflow. It's not really like able to call multiple scripts. It's adding a bunch of stuff to the context every time you call the tool. So with this, you can actually keep all that stuff out of the context window, just call the scripts, and then maybe just return the output or whatever, put that back in the context. So it allows one agent to be able to do a lot more. And I think you could use sub agents if you wanted to, but the idea would be that you just can allow each agent to do a lot more.
Interesting. No, I mean, that sounds good. I haven't looked into this because I feel like when I first heard about it, I was feeling like it was that kind of like the same thing as the agents, multiple agents in Claude, where you could like have a marketing agent, sales agent, or whatever that you could define yourself, that I feel like kind of died off and nobody really used, or wasn't sure if it's going to be a thing like plan mode where people are actually realizing like a separate plan mode isn't really that beneficial. Just ask the LLM to plan and it'll plan. Right. So I was waiting to kind of see if this would stick before diving into it. But I mean, I see more of a benefit
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
now. I'm thinking about like how it could replace MCP servers. If like you could have
Yeah.
a way like
It
of
could.
a schema around it that instead of even having to have like a search tool, you just have skills that you can define and make accessible to anyone
The hard
somehow.
part there would be distribution, because if you wanted someone else to use your skills,
Yeah.
it's files, so you'd still have to
Right.
distribute that somehow. So I think you
Yeah, I
still
mean,
kind of need both. But if you have tools that only you are using, and you have like a bunch of complicated workflows for these tools, then I think skills really could help your agent do more without getting context rot.
yeah. I mean, I guess you could always package up your skills as like an NPM package, maybe, and provide
Yeah.
that. And then you still have an MCP for all of your tools, and then your skills know where to go to look up the tools it needs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. I'll
So
try it.
do you want to talk about your workflow that you set up?
Yeah. It kind of came after trying to play around with that agent orchestrator. Because one of the things that I do, and I've told you this before, like I work across like 10 different repos. A lot of them separate microservices and then also front ends and stuff. And I was just getting really annoyed with having to continually jump through different directories, or like my agent not really having context from interconnected repositories. So like say I have a microservice over here, I have a front end over here, two totally separate Git repos. Normally if you're using like VS Code or Cursor or whatever, your agent's really only working in there. I know you could tell it to go look at these other directories, but it's just a bit more directing of an agent. So what I did was I created a new workspace directory and I loaded everything in as a submodule. And then I also set everything up to run in Docker, so that I just have like a make file that can run everything. And then I use Dazzle to like open up a web UI where I can see all of my logs for every single one of my services running. But the really cool thing is in an LLM, I just have to open up an LLM and I can open up multiple LLMs in this one directory. I can have multiple sessions running, and I can have one LLM session working on one repo, another one working on another repo at the same time. And then like the other benefit too is I can plan more easily across multiple services. So a lot of times I'm thinking about how these services are going to work together and orchestrating things across them. So I can now have like a root plan file in my workspace that can reference multiple things. And so the LLM can easily say, I need to go work with this API. I'm going to actually go look at that schema and I can pull the appropriate information into the plan. Now I need to go look at this API or maybe the CLI or the front end, and I can figure out how it's going to work with the schema that it was about and put it in that plan. And so it can more easily work across multiple repos. And then if it gets stuck, it can actually load up all the logs really easily with just a Docker command. And so it can see the logs for the service over there, and it can see the logs from over there. And it's not met with like a massive log wall of text. Like if I was using tmux or something like that, or just copying and pasting, it can more do filtering on it or just only get the latest amount. And so and it can restart it more easily with just Docker commands to restart the container. It doesn't have to like go in to look at the package.json to see, okay, what is it, a dev command? Is it a local command? Is it a pm start command? It's just like Docker restart container or whatever, right? It knows how to do that. So it's more normalized my developer experience, and as well as giving the LLM more context to work across all of my different services that I work on. So
Yeah.
it's actually been
Awesome.
really nice. And so now if there's another one, if this is, I just give it the URL, I say, pull this in as a Git submodule, research this. And I remove them too, as I don't need them, because I don't want a huge, massive thing. Because there's sometimes where I just want to reference something another team is working on. If I'm doing something similar, like building a front end that I hadn't done in a while, they're using this new framework or whatever, I can say, go pull that down as a submodule. build what we're doing in the same manner and then remove that submodule when you're done. And I have my working code based off of the pattern that another team has done. And so it's just much easier to do that versus me having to go fully grok and understand what that other team did and then distill that to a prompt, to an LLM. I just say, pull it in as a submodule and review it. And let's look at that. It's kind of like AMP's librarian tool. If you use that, where they have a sub agent that can go search any GitHub repository and look at all the source code and do that. But due to security reasons, I can't connect that AMP to all of our GitHub stuff at GoDaddy. But instead, I can just pull everything down as a submodule and do the same thing from there. So far, it's been good. I mean, it's nothing magical. It's just I spent time being like, okay, I don't think the agent orchestrator is the right way, but like, how can I improve my development experience? So like, I just don't have to go through and like spin up all these new terminal panes, starting up these services. It just runs all of them at once. I know they're running. I know it works on this environment that I want and all that stuff. So I do think there's a benefit to taking time and thinking through your developer experience still, especially the more we're going to be building, the more you're going to want the same experience across the board, and be able to run it easily, and LLMs know how to run it too without having to continually go searching how to do it and then filling up your context window with stuff it doesn't really need to do. It already knows how to run Docker. It knows how to restart things. It knows how to look at the logs. I don't have to add any documentation to the context window on how to run things or look at logs or inspect things because it's using Docker.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. I love AI for doing like just improving your developer workflow, because it's one of those things that sometimes I always felt like I just didn't have time for it. And I was like, I just need to like push some code out for customers. I don't, I didn't really work much of my developer experience, but I love that about AI.
Yeah. I mean, it took like 2 hours and I did it all with AI. I was like, what could I do to improve my development experience? I'm working across these different repos. And I'd already had the idea of submodules. I saw somebody else do it. And I started playing with it. I was like, if I put everything in submodules, would that help you? And I was like, yes, then I'd have everything. And we can run it in Docker. Then we can use a makefile. And I was like, all right, let's try it. And then it said, we can use Dozzle. I'd never heard of Dozzle before.
Oh,
and
interesting. The AI recommended it.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, now I got all of my logs right there just in my browser. I don't have to go and tail anything or like remember which terminal pane is which service or anything like that. It's all named according to my Docker containers and all that. So
Nice.
yeah, just take 2 hours, do it. It's worth it.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm gonna as a parting note here, I'm gonna just say go check out Adam Wathan's Walk and Talk, Adam's Morning Walk podcast. It's on Twitter. I think he also has it up on Transistor FM, which means it's probably on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and stuff. But he had a good one today that was just about how he had to fire like 75% of his dev team because their revenue's down, how the Tailwind package has never been more popular because everybody's using it for AI, but he's having a really hard time monetizing it. So like business revenue is down while package downloads are like, skyrocketing, which is just a crazy, I don't think it's really a new problem for open source, but it's just kind of crazy how like AI is kind of like helping his open source package, but hurting his profit, his business. Yeah. So go check that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad to read. And I think it made me think about something like if his business fails, he can't maintain Tailwind anymore. What happens to Tailwind? Is AI just going to keep using it for everything? I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't go away, but what if it did?
Somebody would pick it up, I'm sure. It just might not be as good or as, cared for properly over the long term.
Yeah, would it then become messy and that's beneficial to AI in the long run? I think it just made me think about things that I hadn't really thought about before. It's like, what if all these things that AI defaults to, Shad and Tailwind or React, or I know React's not going anywhere, but it was just an interesting thought that I hadn't considered.
Yeah. Yeah, AI is going to eat a lot of lunches, and not all of them are going to be expected, and there's going to be a lot of fallout from it. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen like tomorrow, but over this next year, there's going to be a lot of like bad things that happen from AI, but there's also a lot of good. It's a crazy time.
Tis a
Yeah.
crazy time.
Well, as usual, thanks for listening to You're Absolutely Right with Wes and Scott. Until next time, Wes.
Always a pleasure, Scott. See you later.